Gather around, boys and girls. I hope you brought your thinking caps on, and if you don't know a word, sound it out. Today, we're going to be reading The Velveteen Rabbit. Oh, isn't she cute? With a little butterfly. All right, The Velveteen Rabbit, or How Toys Become Real. This is by Marjorie Williams, illustrated by Michael Hagee. If we check out this image over here, what do we see? What's the first thing you see? Looking over here. It's a creepy kind of clown. I see a big old bunny rabbit. Oh, look, a cute kitty cat. Some books like what we're going to read today. What does that one say? I think it says The Wizard of Oz. Pretty cool. Let's turn the page. Oh, more toys. What does it say? The Velveteen Rabbit. Let's begin. Here we go. There once was a Velveteen Rabbit, and in the beginning he was really splendid. He was fat and bunchy, as a rabbit should be. His coat was spotted brown, lined with pink sateen. What is sateen? We should look that word up if we don't know it. On Christmas morning, when he sat wedged in the top of the boy's stocking, with a sprig of holly between his paws, the effect was charming. Holly is this little greenery right here that you can see with the little berries on top. So beautiful. There were other things in the stocking. Nuts and oranges. Do you like oranges? And a toy engine. That's right. That's how you say it. And chocolate almonds. Now I'm getting hungry. And a clockwork mouse. But the rabbit was quite the best of all. For at least 2 hours the boy loved him. And then aunts, that's how you say it, aunts, and then aunts. Wow, let's take a look at this picture. That's the Velveteen Rabbit that he got in his stocking, right? And this must be the boy who's opening his gifts on Christmas Day. Do you like Christmas? Me too. Oh, he's got tons of little toys. There goes the orange. And it's snowing outside. What else do you notice in this picture? A cozy couch. Look, more books. And what's this over here? That's a Christmas tree. Yeah, good job. And a stocking. Should we continue? So on this page we said, and then aunts and uncles came to dinner, and there was a great rustling. Rustling means noise. Great rustling of tissue paper and unwrapping of parcels. Parcels. Do we know that word? That means boxes. So are they unwrapping gifts? And in the excitement of looking at all the new presents, you know this word, Velveteen Rabbit was forgotten. Oh, no one's playing with him now. That's kind of sad, right? So for a long time, he lived in the toy cupboard or on the nursery floor, and no one thought very much about him. He was naturally shy, and being only made of velveteen, some of the more expensive toys quite snubbed him, meaning they were more extravagant looking than him. The mechanical toys were very how do you say this? Superior means better. The mechanical toys were very superior and looked down upon everyone else. They were full of modern ideas and pretended they were real. The model boat, who had lived through 2 seasons and lost most of his paint, caught the tone from them and never missed an opportunity of referring to his rigging in technical terms. The rabbit could not claim to be a model of anything, for he didn't know that real rabbits existed. But you know real rabbits exist, right? Have you ever seen a wild bunny rabbit running around outside? Maybe. I know I have. They chew on the grass and they're so cute. Back to the story though. He thought they were all stuffed with sawdust, like himself. And he understood that sawdust was quite out of date and should never be mentioned in modern circles. Even Timothy, the jointed wooden lion, who was made by the disabled soldiers and should have had broader views, put on airs and pretended he was connected with government. Silly. Between them, all the poor little rabbit was made to feel himself very insignificant. This word insignificant means unimportant, not important, and commonplace. And the only person who was kind to him at all was the skin horse. What's a skin horse? Must be some kind of toy. Well, let's go on to learn more. The skin horse had lived longer in the nursery than any of the others. That means he sat at the bottom of the toy chest and no one played with him. That must be very lonely. So, who are we talking about? The skin horse, which must be a toy, just like the Velveteen Rabbit, right? So let's continue reading. He was so old that his brown coat was, let's turn the page, bald in patches and showed the seams underneath, and most of the hairs in his tail had been pulled out to string bead necklaces. Sounds like a beat up toy to me. He was wise, for he had seen a long succession of mechanical toys arrive to boast and swagger, and by break their mainsprings and pass away. And he knew that they were only toys and would never turn into anything else. For nursery magic is very strange and wonderful, and only those playthings that are old and wise and experienced, like the skin horse, understand all about it. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day when they were laying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came to tidy the room. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick out handle?" "Real isn't how you are made," said the skin horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the skin horse, for he was always truthful. "When you are real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up?" he asked, "or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the skin horse. "You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't often happen to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes droop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby." Do we know what the word shabby means? Ran down, raggedy, kind of beat up. Have you ever had a favorite shirt that after so many washes became fuzzy than normal? Fuzzier than normal means shabby. So now you know what shabby means. Let's continue. "But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand." That's a very important lesson. It doesn't matter if people call you ugly. Those who love you will always see you as, what's the opposite of ugly? Beautiful. "I suppose you are real," said the rabbit, and then he wished he had not said it, for he thought the skin horse might be sensitive. But the skin horse only smiled. "The boy's uncle made me real." The boy's uncle made me real. Did we understand a new context about who this skin horse belonged to before the boy? The uncle must have given the skin horse to the boy who owns the Velveteen Rabbit, and that's why no one's playing with him, because the uncle grew up. The boy's uncle made me real, he said. That was a great many years ago. But once you are real, you can't become unreal again. It lasts for always. The rabbit sighed. I know this is a tricky word, but that's how you pronounce it. Sighed. He thought it would be a long time before his magic called real happened to him. He longed to become real, to know what it felt like. And yet the idea of growing shabby and losing his eyes and whiskers was rather sad. He wished that he could become it without these uncomfortable things happening to him. Let's pause right here and take a look at this beautiful illustration. Illustration is another word for drawing. That looks like the boy sleeping with the Velveteen Rabbit, nice and cozy. This is where we left off. There was a person called Nana who ruled the nursery. Do you have a Nana? Sometimes she took no notice of the playthings lying about, and sometimes, for no reason whatever, she went swooping about like a great wind and hustled them away in cupboards. She called this tidying up. When you see something with these little bunny ear marks on both sides, it just means it's an example of something else, like tidying up. That's the official name of it. When you see these little bunny rabbit ears, ask an adult, what do they mean by that? And the playthings all hated it, especially the tin ones. The rabbit didn't mind it so much, for wherever he was thrown, he came down soft, because he's made of velveteen. Velveteen is a soft fabric. One evening, when the boy was going to bed, he couldn't find the china dog that always slept with him. Nana was in a hurry, and it was too much trouble to hunt. You see the word too and too? Too much trouble to hunt. They are different because they have one O separating them. Too much trouble to hunt for china dogs at bedtime. So she simply looked about her, and seeing that the toy cupboard door stood open, she made a swoop. Here, she said, take your old bunny. He'll do to sleep with you. And she dragged the rabbit out by one ear and put him into the boy's arms. That night, and for many nights after, the Velveteen Rabbit slept in the boy's bed. At first, he found it rather uncomfortable, for the boy hugged him very tight, and sometimes he rolled over on him, and sometimes he pushed him so far under the pillow that the rabbit could scarcely breathe. But remember, he's not real, so it's okay. And he missed, too, those long moonlight hours. Shall we turn the page? Oh, look at this. Is that the boy? What's he doing? Looks like a watering can, right? He's in a garden. And it looks like he's watering the garden. What else do we see? Is that our friend, the Velveteen Rabbit? I think so. Wow, they're together. So the boy must have brought the Velveteen Rabbit into the garden while he waters the plants. Isn't that sweet? So what's the last word we left on? So the Velveteen Rabbit missed those long moonlight hours in the nursery when all the house was silent and his talks with Skin Horse. But very soon he grew to like it, for the boy used to talk to him and made nice tunnels for him under the bedclothes that he said were like the burrows the real rabbits lived in. And they had splendid times together in whispers when Nana had gone away to her supper and left the night light burning on the mantelpiece. And when the boy dropped off to sleep, the rabbit would snuggle down close under his little warm chin and dream. What's some of your dreams? Did you ever have a dream of rainbows and unicorns and candy falling from the sky. With the boy's hands clasped close around him all night long. So they slept together, it seems like, right? They're getting along pretty well. And remember earlier in the story, the Velveteen Rabbit was lonely, but now he's sleeping with the boy and even playing with the boy. And so time went on, and the little rabbit was very happy. So happy that he never noticed how his beautiful velveteen fur was getting shabbier and shabbier, and his tail coming unsewn, and all the pink rubbed off his nose where the boy had kissed him. That just means he's well loved, right? We were warned about this, that the more you play with something, the more you love something, sometimes the shabbier it becomes. Let's continue. Spring came, and they had long days in the garden. Wherever the boy went, the rabbit went too. He had rides in the wheelbarrow, and picnics on the grass, and lovely fairy huts built for him under the raspberry canes behind the flower border. And once, when the boy was called away suddenly to go out to tea, the rabbit was left out on the lawn until long after dusk, and Nana had to come and look for him with the candle because the boy couldn't go to sleep unless he was there. Did you ever have a toy that you really wanted and couldn't find out where you left it last? It's kind of what happened here, but Nana seemed to have found him. He was wet through with the dew and quite earthly from diving into the burrows the boy had made for him in the flower bed. That means he was dirty and wet. And Nana grumbled as she rubbed him off with a corner of her apron. You must have your old bunny, she said. Fancy all that fuss for a toy. The boy sat up in bed and stretched out his hands. Give me my bunny, he said. You mustn't say that. He isn't a toy. He's real. When the little rabbit heard that, he was happy, for he knew that what the Skin Horse had said was true at last. The nursery magic had happened to him, and he was a toy no longer. He was real. The boy himself had said it. That night he was almost too happy to sleep, and so much love stirred in his little sawdust heart that it almost burst. And into his boot-button eyes that had long ago lost their polish, there came a look of wisdom and beauty. Do you know that you're beautiful? You are. Let's continue reading. So that even Nana noticed it next morning when she picked him up and said, I declare, if that old bunny hasn't got quite a knowing expression. This must be Nana if we look at the illustration. And this must be the Velveteen Rabbit. She's checking out the old Velveteen Rabbit and admiring how awesome it looks. We're now at page, what number is that? 11. This is 10, we're on 11. Before we dive in, let's take a look at the picture. What do we have here? In the background, I see a house. That must be the boys where the Velveteen Rabbit lives. And they seem to be far away from it, out maybe in the woods. Oh, what's this kind of creature? Is that a mouse? That looks like a rat with the tail so long. And I see the boy holding our friend, the Velveteen Rabbit. Let's dive in. That was a wonderful summer. Near the house where they lived, there was a wood, just like I said. And in the long June evenings, because June is in summer, right? June is one of the months of summer. And in the long June evenings, the boy liked to go there after tea to play. He took the Velveteen Rabbit with him, and before he wandered off to pick flowers or play at brigands among the trees, he always made the rabbit a little nest somewhere among the bracken, where he would be quite cozy, for he was a kind-hearted little boy. Are you a kind-hearted little boy or girl? And he liked Bunny to be comfortable. One evening, while the rabbit was lying there alone, watching the ants that ran to and fro between his velvet paws in the grass, he saw two strange beings creep out of the tall bracken near him. Ooh, this sounds kind of scary. What happens next? Oh, what a beautiful illustration. And hey, what do we have here? How many bunny rabbits do you see? One. I bet you didn't see this one too easily. He's blending in. When something's blending in, we call it camouflage. So this little bunny rabbit here is blending in, and we see another real one here. Does this one look like this one? Almost, except we can tell that this is a toy because these are the sewing marks, and this one doesn't have sewing marks because it's a real wild rabbit. What else do we see here? Take a look for yourself. Hmm? Ah, a butterfly. Is that a monarch butterfly? With the orange and the white stripes, that tends to be a monarch butterfly. These are mushrooms. We leave mushrooms alone unless we see them in the supermarket, right? Flowers, beautiful flowers. What a beautiful image. Really relaxing. Let's see what happens in the story. Page 14 of the Velveteen Rabbit. They were rabbits like himself, but quite furry and brand new. They must have been very well made, for their seams, which I told you about, like these are seams from sewing, their seams didn't show at all, and they changed shape in a queer way when they moved. Queer in this context looks like the word queen, but it means weird, queer, queer way when they moved. One minute they were long and thin, and the next minute fat and bunchy, instead of always staying the same like he did. You see, the more they move, the more they shift around their bodies like a real rabbit. But that doesn't happen with a fake little stuffed animal rabbit, right? Their feet patted softly on the ground, and they crept quite close to him, twitching their noses, while the rabbit stared hard to see where the clockwork stuck out, for he knew that people who jump generally have something to wind them up. But he couldn't see it. They were evidently a new kind of rabbit altogether. They stared at him, and the little rabbit stared back. And all the time their nose twitched. Twitch, 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 twitch. Why don't you get up and play with us? One of them asked. I don't feel like it, said the rabbit, for he didn't want to explain that he had no clockwork. What do we see here? We see that one of the real rabbits was talking to the fake rabbit. This is a book about imagination. I don't feel like it, said the rabbit, for he didn't want to explain that he had no clockwork. He didn't want to explain to the real rabbits that he was just a stuffed animal. He was hiding the truth. "Ho," said the furry rabbit. It's as easy as anything." And he gave a big hop sideways and stood on his hind legs like they're doing in this picture. "I don't believe you can," he said. "I can," said the little rabbit. "I can jump higher than anything." He meant when the boy threw him, but of course he didn't want to say so. "Can you hop on your hind legs?" asked the furry rabbit. What do we think the word hind means? Can you hop on your hind legs? Well, rabbits have four legs, two in the front, two in the back, and so hind legs refer to the two in the back, like here. We don't have hind legs because we're humans and we only have two legs, not four, asked the furry rabbit. Let's turn the page. That was a dreadful question. Dreadful meaning hard question. That was a hard question, for the Velveteen Rabbit had no hind legs at all. The back of him was made all in one piece, like a pincushion. He sat still in the bracken and hoped. Almost looks like the word hopped, but it's hoped. Hopped has two P's. Hoped has one. And hoped that the other rabbits wouldn't notice. "I don't want to," he said again. But the wild rabbits have very sharp eyes. Sharp doesn't mean like a knife, it means like that they work very well. There's a lot of ways words have meaning, and sharp is one of those words that have several meanings. Like scissors are sharp, so we are careful when we use them. But when the wild rabbits have very sharp eyes, it means that they work very well. And this one stretched out his neck and looked. He hasn't got any hind legs, he called out. Fancy, a rabbit without any hind legs. And he began to laugh. Wow. It's kind of mean of that rabbit, right? I have, cried the little rabbit. I have got hind legs. I'm I'm sitting on them. Then stretch them out and show me, like this, said the wild rabbit. And he began to whirl around and dance till the little rabbit got quite dizzy. I don't like dancing, he said. I'd rather sit still. But all the while he was longing to dance, for a funny new tickly feeling ran through him, and he felt he would give anything in the world to be able to jump about like these rabbits did. The strange rabbit stopped dancing and came quite close. He came so close this time that his long whiskers brushed the Velveteen Rabbit's ear, and then he wrinkled his nose suddenly and flattened his ears and jumped backwards. He doesn't smell right, he exclaimed. He isn't a rabbit at all. He isn't real. I am real, said the little rabbit. I am real. The boy said so. And he nearly began to cry. Poor little rabbit. Just then there was a sound of footsteps, and the boy ran past near them, and with a stamp of his feet and a flash of white tails, the two strange rabbits disappeared. You see, they ran the other way. The boy scared him off. Come back and play with me, called the little rabbit. Oh, do come back. I know I'm real. But there was no answer. Only the little ants ran to and fro, and the bracken swayed gently where the two strangers had passed. The Velveteen Rabbit was all alone. Poor little rabbit. This is kind of a sad story, but I think it's going to have a good ending. Who knows? Let's stay tuned. Here's the boy. Looks like he grabbed him. Oh, but by the ears. That's kind of rough. But he's just a stuffed animal right now, right? And look, it's nighttime. But when they were out, it was day. So much time had passed. I guess this is what we can tell from this illustration. Oh dear, he thought. Why did they run away like that? Why couldn't they stop and talk to me? For a long time he lay very still, watching the bracken and hoping that they would come back. But they never returned, and presently the sun sank lower and the little white moths fluttered out, and the boy came and carried him home. Let's look at this. Looks like he's back in the toy chest. Looks like no one's playing with him. Let's read page 19. Weeks passed, and the little rabbit grew very old and shabby. But the boy loved him just as much. He loved him so hard that he loved all his whiskers off, and the pink lining to his ears turned gray, and his brown spots faded. He even began to lose his shape. He scarcely looked like a rabbit anymore, except to the boy. To him, he was always beautiful. In other words, no matter how worn down this rabbit looked, what matters is the boy loved him and he loved the boy. To him, he was always beautiful, and that was all that the little rabbit cared about. He didn't mind how he looked to other people because the nursery magic had made him real. And when you are real, shabbiness doesn't matter. And then one day, the boy was ill. Ill means sick. Have you ever stayed home from school because you weren't feeling well? Did you ever pretend that you weren't feeling well just to not go to school? I hope not. Well, that's what the word ill means. His face grew very flushed, and he talked in his sleep. We're talking about the boy. and his little body was so hot that it burned the rabbit. He must have had a fever, right? When he held him close. Strange people came and went in the nursery, and a light burned all night. And through it all, the little Velveteen Rabbit lay there, hidden from sight under the bedclothes. And he never stirred, for he was afraid that if they found him, someone might take him away, and he knew that the boy needed him. It was a long, weary time, for the boy was too ill to play, and the little rabbit found it rather dull, meaning boring, and the little rabbit found it rather dull, with nothing to do all day long. But he snuggled down patiently and looked forward to the time when the boy should be well again, and they would go out in the garden amongst the flowers and the butterflies and play splendid games in the raspberry thicket like they used to. All sorts of delightful things he planned, and while the boy lay half asleep, he crept up close to the pillow and whispered them in his ear. And presently the fever turned, and the boy got better. He was able to sit up in bed and look at picture books, while the little rabbit cuddled close at his side. And one day they let him get up and dress. It was a bright sunny morning, and the windows stood wide open. They had carried the boy out onto the balcony. When one word is split like that with a little line, it's so that every word matches a straight formation. So if we didn't have it wrapped around here, it would be all little jagged edge looking things. So, but to keep it smooth on the paper, we do this little line that says, I'm splitting one word into two. So that's what this little line means. Balcony. Wrapped in a shawl, and the little rabbit lay tangled up among the bedclothes, thinking. The boy was going to the seaside tomorrow. I love going to the ocean, collecting shells, kind of like this, or like that. And it's so cool too because they have holes in them. You can make necklaces. Yeah. So the boy was going to the seaside tomorrow. Everything was arranged, and now it only remained to carry out the doctor's orders. They talked about it all while the little rabbit lay under the bedclothes. See the bunny reading with the boy who's sick in bed and reading his own book, with just his head peeping out, and listened. The room was to be disinfected. Do we know what that word means? Disinfected. I'm sure you've heard of the word infected. So dis means to remove. Remove the infection. They're going to sanitize the room and clean it up after the boy was sick, which is a good idea to get rid of all those germs that were there in the meantime. The room was to be disinfected, and all the books and toys that the boy had played with in bed must be burned. Surely they could have just washed it, right? Not burned. Hurrah, thought the little rabbit. Tomorrow we shall go to the seaside. For the boy had often talked of the seaside, and he wanted very much to see the big waves coming in, and the tiny crabs, and the sand castles. Just then Nana caught sight of him. How about this old bunny? She asked. That? Said the doctor. Why, it's a mass of scarlet fever germs. Burn it at once. What nonsense! Get him a new one. He mustn't have that any more. And so the little rabbit was put into a sack with the old picture books and a lot of rubbish, and carried out to the end of the garden behind the fowl house. Fowl house is a chicken coop where the chickens are. That was a fine place to make a bonfire, only the gardener was too busy just then to attend to it. He had the potatoes to dig and the green peas to gather, but next morning he promised to come quite early and burn the whole lot. So what did we just learn? We learned that after the boy was sick, they were going to get rid of all the old toys and burn them so that the germs didn't spread. And part of that garbage pile to be burned was our friend the Velveteen Rabbit. So he sat in the garbage can overnight. That night, the boy slept in a different bedroom, and he had a new bunny to sleep with. It was a splendid bunny, all white plush with real glass eyes. But the boy was too excited to care very much about it, for tomorrow he was going to the seaside. And that in itself was such a wonderful thing that he could think of nothing else. Have you ever been so excited that all you thought about was the adventure you were going to be going on? Same thing with this boy. And while the boy was asleep, dreaming of the seaside, the little rabbit lay among the old picture books in the corner behind the fowl house, and he felt very lonely. The sack had been left untied, the garbage bag, in other words, had been left untied, and so by wriggling about, moving about a bit, he was able to get his head through the opening and look out. He was shivering a little, for he had always been used to sleeping in a proper bed, and by this time his coat had worn so thin and threadbare from hugging that it was no longer any protection to him. Near by he could see the thicket of raspberry canes growing tall and close like a tropical jungle, in whose shadow he had played with the boy on bygone mornings. It means mornings before. He was thinking back and reflecting on times where he wasn't in a trash can. Instead, he was playing with the boy. But those were just memories. He thought of those long sunlit hours in the garden, how happy they were, and a great sadness came over him. He seemed to see them all pass before him, each more beautiful than the other. The fairy huts in the flower bed, the quiet evenings in the wood when he lay in the bracken and the little ants ran over his paws, the wonderful day when he first knew that he was real. He thought of the skin horse, so wise and gentle, and all that he had told him. Of what use was it to be loved and lose one's beauty and become real if it all ended like this? And a tear, a real tear, trickled down his little shabby velvet nose and fell to the ground. What's happening in this story so far? So far, the Velveteen Rabbit's in the trash can, and he remembers all the fun times that he had with the boy before he made it to the trash can. And this made Velveteen Rabbit sad, because he didn't want to lose the boy. But he was sitting in the trash can to be burned because Nana and the doctor believed that he had germs, and they didn't want to continue having germs in the house now that the boy was feeling better. And then a strange thing happened. For where the tear had fallen, a flower grew out of the ground. A mysterious flower, not at all like any that grew in the garden. It had slender green leaves. Slender. It means thin, skinny. Skinny green leaves, the color of emeralds, which is green. And in the center of the leaves, a blossom like a golden cup. Can we imagine that? Right where the Velveteen Rabbit's tear fell, a flower grew that had skinny, slender green leaves, and in the center of the leaves, a blossom like a golden cup. It was so beautiful that the little rabbit forgot to cry and just lay there watching it. And presently the blossom opened, and out of it there stepped a fairy. This is getting very magical. Is that the fairy that blossomed out of the golden cup from where the Velveteen Rabbit shed his tear? Wow, isn't she majestic? Look at how her hair flows. And it's nighttime, so we have every reason to be a little bit scared. Are you afraid of the dark? Not me, I'm brave. But can you imagine how the Velveteen Rabbit felt? He never really slept outside. Seeing this fairy, though, it must have made him feel some type of emotion. Let's see. She was quite the loveliest fairy in the whole world. Her dress was of pearl, meaning white and shimmery like that, and dewdrops, and there were flowers round her neck and in her hair, and her face was like the most perfect flower of all. And she came close to the little rabbit and gathered him up in her arms and kissed him on his velveteen nose that was all damp from crying. "Little rabbit," she said, "don't you know who I am?" The rabbit looked up at her, and it seemed to him that he had seen her face before, but he couldn't think where. "I'm the nursery magic fairy," she said. "I take care of all the playthings that the children have loved. When they are old and worn out and the children don't need them any more, then I come and take them away with me and turn them into real." I'm happy to hear that because I was getting sad for the Velveteen Rabbit. Let's continue. "Wasn't I real before?" asked the little rabbit. "You were real to the boy," the fairy said, "because he loved you. Now you shall be real to everyone." And she held the little rabbit close in her arms and flew with him into the wood. Wow, they're flying! It was light now, for the moon had risen. All the forest was beautiful, and the fronds of the bracken shone like frosted silver. In the open glade between the tree trunks the wild rabbits danced with their shadows on the velvet grass. But when they saw the fairy, they all stopped dancing and stood round in a ring to stare at her. "I've brought you a new playfellow," the fairy said. And this must be the fairy with the Velveteen Rabbit flying through the woods, where he's about to become real. Oh my, look at this image. She's holding the fake rabbit before she does some magic, I guess, to turn him real like these other rabbits. Maybe Velveteen Rabbit will be able to jump and hop like real rabbits one day. Oh, and look at all the stars in the sky. And since it's nighttime, we know this isn't the sun. It must be the moon. Yep, the moon. Here, who's that? You must be very kind to him and teach him all he needs to know in Rabbitland, where he is going to live with you forever and ever. This is the fairy talking. And she kissed the little rabbit again and put him down on the grass. "Run and play, little rabbit," she said. But the little rabbit sat quite still for a moment and never moved. For when he saw all the wild rabbits dancing around him, he suddenly remembered about his hind legs. That means the back legs. And he didn't want them to see that he was made all in one piece. He did not know that when the fairy kissed him that last time, she had changed him altogether, and he might have sat there for a long time, too shy to move, if just then something hadn't tickled his nose, and before he thought what he was doing, he lifted his hind toe and to scratch it. And he found that he actually had hind legs. Instead of dingy velveteen, he had brown fur, soft and shiny. His ears twitched by themselves, and his whiskers were so long that they brushed the grass. Oh my goodness, it seems like the fairy turned him into a real furry, jumping bunny rabbit. He gave one leap, and the joy of using those hind legs was so great that he went springing about the turf on them, jumping sideways and whirling round as the others did. And he grew so excited that when at last he did stop to look for the fairy, she had gone. He was a real rabbit at last, at home with the other rabbits. Check it out. Hey, is that the boy again? Where are we now in the story? We're in the woods. Is this the Velveteen Rabbit who now was a real furry jumping bunny rabbit because of the fairy? Let's go on and see. Autumn passed, which is one of the seasons, right? We have spring, summer, autumn, which is another way to say fall, and winter. Autumn passed and winter, and in the spring, when the days grew warm and sunny, the boy went out to play in the wood behind the house. And while he was playing, two rabbits crept out from the bracken and peeped at him. One of them was brown all over, but the other had strange markings under his fur, as though long ago he had been spotted. Do we see spots here? Little brown spots? Just like our friend the Velveteen Rabbit? And the spots still showed through. And about his little soft nose and his round black eyes there was something familiar, so that the boy thought to himself, "Why, he looks just like my old bunny that was lost when I had scarlet fever." But he never knew that it really was his own bunny, come back to look at the child who had first helped him to be real. The end. Look at our friend, he's real now, jumping around on hind legs like a real bunny does. That was such an amazing book. Thank you for joining me reading it. Tune in next time.